my name is Ahmed Tolba, as I introduced myself, and my area is management. I teach marketing at the School of Business. And the context here is that I teach classes that are 30 plus. So it's not, sometimes maybe this is a different context from graduate student classes or from classes that are much smaller, but it's has different challenges. But what I'll try to do is, what I'll try to provide you here is something generic, not related to a specific discipline. So all what I want to do is I want to make sure that what I'll cover is thought-provoking so that you can have good discussions. So what I'm going to say is very simple. 5 phases that I think we went through, 3 principles that I believe in that we should consider, and 6 tips for you from my side based on my experience, not as an expert, as a faculty member who thought about it, thought that some things were successful, and I would like to share with you. So of course, your feedback on that is very important, and the critical one is to discuss it together. So what I want to say at the beginning is, what are the 5 phases that I felt we've gone through? Maybe the 2 teams that, or the 2 groups that listened to the presentation before somehow agreed about these phases. So I'm curious to see how you felt about them as well. So I felt that a year ago, we were in the state of shock. So what happened? We are moving to online. We don't know what to do. The semester is over. The class cannot move online. I'm sure that I cannot teach online. So we are really in a shaky situation. And then step by step, we reached the level of survival. So CLT gave us a session or 2, and we knew some tips. We found out that we can use Panopto. We can do some asynchronous teaching. We are not happy, but we hope that the semester is over and then we are back in the summer or in the fall. So survival phase is over. We reached the level of acceptance throughout the spring semester. We figured out that Zoom now is working. We can do synchronous teaching. Things are fine. And we're not happy with the situation, but we are accepting it, and we feel that the semester is saved, and our course is going to be delivered, maybe not as great as we wanted it to be, but as close as possible, and we're fine. And then after that, right, we are now. We figured out that we are there for some time, so we need to improve. So this is what the phase that I love, is where faculty members started to share their experiences together, not just like in this symposium, but in general. At my Department of Management, we had a WhatsApp group where everybody's sharing experiences. You can ask questions and people answer. It's really very positive. So the state of improvement is where we are now. We're trying to maximize the benefit and try to reach the best possible online instruction to reach our objectives. And the last phase that we may have at the back of our minds, or maybe start considering, is what's the future. So if we return back to campus, are we going to return back to exactly the same strategies we have? Or can we learn from this online experience and have a blend that would allow us to optimize and really reach a higher level of performance and the learning for our students? So these are the 5 phases. I'm curious to know, of course, how you felt about these 5 phases. Anybody felt similar to what I described? This is my experience. Does this look familiar?
Very familiar, very familiar. Yes.
Yeah. Except that the shock level at CLT was a bit higher than normal.
The CLT, I can write more different words and more red colors. I'm sure about that.
Acceptance to us was like early April 2020.
Yeah, you are the heroes. I know that. All right. So next, I'm going to talk about 3 principles that I really believe in. The first principle is our goal is student learning, and that's the most important principle. I always remember that. I always try to remind myself if I'm doing something and it's not working that well online, I always say, are students learning? So I'm fine. So it's not that I want to perfect what I used to do face-to-face. No, I need to reflect on the outcome that comes to the students. As long as the learning is there, I can compromise on a couple of things I was doing. The second is we have to remember that students are suffering, not just faculty. We are suffering. We have an incredible increase in workload. We are not comfortable, but students are suffering as well. They are young people. They want to see each other. Their mental health is not at its best online. They lose their concentration when staying on the bed and trying to listen to a class online, and they are not forced to open their cameras, and nobody is really looking at them. So they are more eager, more lean towards, if they are not really extremely motivated and interested, they may lose focus, and then they will return back and try to understand, so they lose more time. And we cannot blame them. That's human nature. So we need to adapt, and we need to understand that they are also suffering, and we need to understand their feelings, not just to expect that we are suffering and they need to adapt. And the third one is there are so many positives that we have got from the online experience, and I'm going to talk about that in the tips next. I want to look at the cup half full. I want to look at all the things that were good in online that were not that good in the face-to-face, and now we can think together about the future and how to optimize. So I'm a positive person. I like to look at what is good. The challenges are there, but I would like to overcome them and look at the positives. So the main tips that I have for you are as follows. These are based on my experience. The first one is we're not there alone. I said students are suffering too. So that was a principle, but we need to listen to them. We need to listen to them, even if they say something that we know. Listen to them. If they keep talking and expressing themselves, and they feel that we understand that they are not in good shape, this makes them more motivated. So listening to them is the first tip. The second tip is get to know them. We used to know them easier by face and in the class and stuff like this, and maybe after class and in our office hours. But online is really hard, and with no cameras in most of the classes, I could not force opening the camera, and I did not want to do that. So get to know the students early on is important. But in order to do this, you need to show empathy. You need to let them talk. You need to, if they have a concern, you tell them. You always give them some relief about certain things. You tell them you will do great. Things are going to be fine. Trust me. All these kinds of things, although they take some time from the class, but I would rather build a strong basis for the environment and the encouragement and the motivation inside the class, rather than just add another chapter or add another topic. I would rather go deep in topics, get less material, but more depth and more motivation and interaction. My third tip is what I was just talking about, is motivation is what drives interaction. So it's not just the tools. If students are not motivated, and I'm using chats and I'm using breakout rooms and I'm using things, if they are not motivated, they will not be interacting well, or they're just going to do whatever we instruct them to do. So getting close to them and motivating them, telling them encouragements. If I tell them, if I give them a problem or a case study in business and they try to solve, if somebody gets me a good solution, I try to say, great point, this is fantastic, bravo. All these kinds of things make them like, oh, I will talk more, I'll talk more. There is no question that is a stupid question or bad question. I always keep saying that over and over. When somebody answers something wrong, I tell them, well, this is a good point, but let's think about it from a different angle. So they always think that they are on the right track, and they want to understand what's there, rather than just relax and say, oh, I'm demotivated. So motivation is hard in the online environment, and we need to always keep this in our mind. Are students motivated and happy or not? This will help in building the interaction. And number four is online tools are quite effective. I like them. I want to use many of them after we return back to face-to-face, using polls, using the chat, which is something I would love to keep them open, even if I am in a face-to-face class and they have their laptops with them, because sometimes I ask a question and somebody raises their hands and talk. Somebody else wanted to say something, or maybe I give them a problem and they want to give an answer, so everybody would write an answer. So all these kinds of things make them excited, even if it's a simple question. But my objective is not to come up with the answer. My objective is to let them interact and involved in reaching the solution of that particular discussion or the opinion, if we are talking about a debate in our class. I also try to do some breakout rooms as much as possible if the exercise allows, but something that will take time. But again, less is more. If I teach less and the students are really engaged and they get depth, is far better than covering too much material. Number 5 is group meetings lead to stronger connection. I always use group meetings to get to know people, to open the cameras there and to discuss them. But I make use of that to seek their feedback. How is the class moving on? We are talking about the project, but I ask them about this intentionally, and they keep talking. They feel that there is a human connection that is being built. If I cannot do it with 35 students without cameras, I can do it in a team of 4 or 5 talking to me in the group meetings. And my 6th tip, which is something very popular in the discussion and debatable, is assessments. I always think, I always want to say, to remind myself, do not be obsessed with assessments. If I do a bad exam, the grade is not fair because it does not reflect real knowledge. So I don't want to be obsessed about I have to do the exam the way I used to do it. No, I do open book, open notes exams anyway. I've been doing that for forever. But I want to always be reminded that the assessment's role is a learning tool. I always tell them that. I tell them the exam is done in order for you to learn more. You will be put in a situation where you'll be reflecting, and this will really elevate your learning. I always keep telling them this over and over. I do revision sessions before each exam. I tell them you'll do well. I'll tell them the exam will be fine. Don't be worried. Although my exams are long and quite difficult, but I always keep them at the positive. And then I do multiple versions. I do not tell them I do not cheat. I'm afraid that you cheat. No, I don't say that. I tell them there are multiple versions, by the way, and the exam is long, so try your best to optimize your time. So they indirectly know that I'm telling them I know that there is a possibility of cheating, but at the same time I say it in a positive way so that they feel that, oh, I have to study well, I have to understand, things are going to be fine. It's open book, open notes, no memorization anyway, so I'm going to do well. If I waste time, I may not finish the exam. It's too high of a risk, so let me do the exam well. So the cheating is always going to be there. We can minimize it, we cannot really eliminate it, but if we are obsessed about it, we forget that assessment is a part of the learning experience, and that's our first principle. So the bottom line is the key takeaways that I want to come up with today. Number one is our goal is student learning. Number two, we need to gain the students' trust and get to know them early on, because that will be the infrastructure for the rest of the semester. Students need to be to feel your empathy. They need to be motivated. If you motivate them, they will interact. So the start of the semester is critical. Seek one-to-one feedback. They will always feel that you care about them. And finally, assessment is a learning tool. And I'll finish with this. It's all about our mindset. If our mindset is student learning, our mindset is to perfect what we do and reach our objectives, we will be able to achieve it, whether it's online or face-to-face. So the details, the devil is in the detail, but that's the big picture. So that's what I wanted to say. I hope that this was nice and informative, and I would love to listen to your thoughts, feedback, discussions.
I have a question.
Sure.
Of course, this was very useful, so thank you so much. But I was wondering if we can get this material, because I think some points, because of the time, I understand we had to go through really fast, and I wanted to think about it and express it more if that's possible.
Absolutely. I will. All the slides are going to be available with the CLT team. So of course, and I would love to share them. And if you'd like to contact me, have a Zoom meeting or by email, I will be happy to discuss it. And again, I'm not the expert. I am just reflecting of what I thought would be good. And I would love to listen to everybody so that we learn from each other. So definitely, I
think we are all learning from each other. And I think I can't speak for everyone, but I think I learned a lot from you today.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say I appreciate the axiom you used of less is more. That's something that I really learned was a good thing for me last semester. I remember, looking at learning outcomes in a course and thinking, the way we would have approached this in the past is not quite working. And of course, as much as I was trying to do things differently, I also realized I was trying to do things the same. And so I thought, well, let me just look at the outcomes. Let me make sure what we're doing is really addressing those. And of course, what was happening was when more room was being opened up for not the basics, but the core things that needed to happen, it was giving them more room for digital literacies and getting used to this new way of doing things. And so while in the back of my head, I always felt like, does this mean my course is less rigorous or something like that? I then read something from a Harvard professor saying exactly what I was thinking. And I thought, okay, if somebody from Harvard's thinking this, then I must be on the right track. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think that's something that we're all still struggling with, because we're all worried about rigor, but we also realize that this online delivery is maybe it takes a little bit more time, maybe it takes a little bit more effort for everybody involved. So we just have to, that less is more is very important. So I thank you for saying that and reaffirming that idea. It's important for all of us.
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you. Other thoughts, feedback, discussion points? how to move forward for what about the future? What can we make use of in once we return back to campus? What do you think? Are you going to use more online tools if we go back to campus? So tell me more about what you thought. I also want to learn from your thoughts and direction.
Oh, I mean, I've been using I've been using a couple new online tools for communication because I've been teaching listening and speaking, and I'm absolutely going to use them face-to-face as well. Because I actually learn more about my students using those tools. And so I want to keep learning about my students in that way. So absolutely. Yeah.
I personally think that I give you my thought about it, but I don't know how we're going to implement it. We are really learning fast and things are so quick. But one of the things I believe Zoom meetings are going to be, or group meetings are going to continue, and the timing is flexible, and all these kinds of things really make students more engaged. So and get to know them more. Sometimes if you want to meet a group, sometimes they send 1 or 2 students because the others cannot come at that time. But when we meet at 7 p.m. or over the weekend, sometimes it's really more effective. That's my view.